Well, again, like I said, good evening. My name is Balaish. I'm the Family Empowerment Communications Coordinator for the Special Education Office for the New York City Department of Education, and I will be your host for tonight's Beyond Access series. We are very excited for tonight's session. It is sadly, but also sweetly, the final edition of our three-part series from the Just Say Hi, which is the award-winning program, Disability Inclusion, PK, through 12 school-based program run by the Cerebral Palsy Foundation. And we're also, of course, very excited for our final ASL interpretation with our very own Greenie Dixon. So thank you for being with us tonight. Now, tonight's session titled, I Wish My Parents Hadn't, Anecdotal Lessons from Learned Experience, will be led by an amazing guest speaker, Miss Wheelchair 2018, a disability activist and author, Miss Katrina Hazell, who will share her perspective and her journey. And we're looking very forward to her presentation tonight. But as always, before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. As a general reminder, there is no chat function during this webinar, but the Q&A function is on. You'll be able to ask questions throughout the presentation that we can answer as we go on, but we do set time aside at the end so we can answer any questions at that time as well. And as always, this session is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube page tomorrow. So don't worry if you miss any content throughout the presentation, you'll be able to rewatch it once it's posted on our YouTube page, as well as any resources and materials that we talk about today will be sent in a recap email tomorrow. Now, as I mentioned earlier, tonight, we're having an amazing presentation from Katrina Hazell, but I first want to hand it over to Debbie Fink, the Vice President of Education and Inclusion at the Cerebral Palsy Foundation, to introduce us on tonight's presentation and topic. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Debbie.
Thank you, Ari. As always, it is such a pleasure to be here partnering with New York City's Department of Education and being a part of Beyond Access platform, which is so critical for all parents and guardians of students with disabilities. So it is our pleasure and honor to partner with all of you. So as Ori mentioned, my name is Debbie Fink. I'm Vice President of Education and Inclusion for the Cerebral Palsy Foundation. And if you've been with us before, we always lift up 3 best practices just to keep it in our awareness. The first best practice is called audio descriptions, and this is to help as an on-ramp for many people who are low vision or blind. So here goes mine. I am a white woman with brown hair wearing glasses, and I am seated with a virtual backdrop behind me that says, "Just say hi." The second best practice is Ms. Greenie Dixon, who is our ASL interpreter, and she is also a veteran. So I always take this opportunity to thank Ms. Dixon for her service to our nation. The third best practice is the closed captioning that Beyond Access always activates because that serves as an on-ramp for people who are hard of hearing, who are deaf, who are English as second language learners, and then people like me who just process information better when we can read along. So those are the 3 best practices, and we are now ready to move into the topic of the night of our mini-series. Our 3-part mini-series that we've been doing this fall. The topic is, I wish my parents had, I wish my parents hadn't, and my parents got this just right. And we will be learning from Ms. Wheelchair New York 2018, Katrina Hazell's lived experience. So I am going to now share my screen so you can see the title right there. And the mantra for this mini series has been presume competence, meaning believe in your child and set high expectations and believe that your child is capable of either accomplishing X task or learning Y, until proven otherwise. And then you can always sort of revisit and test that along the way. But it's so important that you presume competence and that messaging is constantly being sent to your child, not only from you and family members, but expect that all the adults who interact with your child are also presuming competence. So very important. As such, I've opened with this quote, which I love. Everyone, regardless of ability or disability, has strengths and weaknesses. Know what your child's strengths are and build upon these strengths and find a way around these weaknesses and also address them. This quote comes from Brad Cohen, who is an assistant principal and was Georgia Teacher of the Year and author of the book Front of the Class: How Tourette Syndrome Made Me the Teacher I Never Had. So we're now going to watch a video to introduce Katrina Hazell.
Hope is to authentically share the stories of young people entering the world and their future with a network of support and dreams intact and on track.
My name is Katrina Hazell. I am 27 years old. I am from East New York, Brooklyn. I have a disability, cerebral palsy. I was diagnosed with at 9 months old. I use a wheelchair for mobility. Most of the New York City schools I attended were in my surrounding neighborhoods of East New York and Bronxville, which is also known as the underserved community. I am an advocate lead for the Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation, a certified professional coach, and a motivational speaker. I serve on many committees, locally and statewide. I was really shy when I was younger, to the point where when I was going from early intervention into public school, a school psychologist came to evaluate me. And because I did not respond to her, when she asked me my colors, she assumed I did not know my colors and made a recommendation that I be placed in a classroom with children who were considered mentally retarded at that time. Here I am, a motivational speaker, a disability champion, and speaking at schools, keynote speaker for galas, and I also speak internationally.
Played in 2 different Super Bowls. I know a lot about things like motivation, strength, resilience, and that's why I'm very, very proud tonight to introduce you to an incredible person, Katrina Hazell.
It's truly an honor to be here today, surrounded by so many amazing kids, families, and most of all, you, supporters of Encourage Kids Foundation. Encourage Kids means to me that children get the opportunities that they never had before, and families get to be in a safe space.
I believe it was Encourage Kids New York, where she spoke. Wow, I think there were hundreds of people in that room. And we were on that platform, and I'm telling you, something clicked in her. I can feel the power just being released when she looked out into that audience and realized, wow, there's hundreds of people there and they're listening to me. So she knew then that she had a story. She had a voice and she had a story to tell.
So that is not only the fact that Katrina has and discovered that she has a story to tell, but she then put that story into words, onto paper, and wrote her story. And her story has just now is about to be published. It's called Special Education to College, the Katrina Story. And it's coming out November 28th. And Trina, that's in less than 2 weeks, right? That's pretty exciting. And I've pre-ordered my copy, and we'll let you know how to pre-order yours, but the Kindle is now available as well. So I have to also preface, like, this is a topic where Her parents clearly, just show courage to be a part of this evening with us. And I have to say that I have the joy and privilege of knowing and meeting and working with Trina, and meeting her parents. That's Dr. Nell Richardson, her godmother, to the right of me, and her parents, at Beverly and Arvind, Arnett, Beverly and Arnett Hazell, and her sister Chantel. And there we are at Capitol Hill, there for the Americans with Disabilities Act Summit 2019. And also in this photo is the former Congressman of Texas, Steve Bartlett, who played a critical role in getting the ADA signed. And also to the far right, Vivian Bass, who is a lifelong staunch advocate for the disability community. So, here's Trina, the activist, with her incredible support network right by her side. All right, Trina, back to you.
It's an honor to be here. But before I get started on sharing my journey, I'll give a short description of myself. I'm a Black woman. I'm wearing braids, and I use a wheelchair, and you see me with the red headphones around my neck, and I'm wearing a black shirt. At 9 months old, when my parents took me back to the hospital to question why I was not reaching my developmental milestones, the doctor informed my parents I had a disability, but weren't allowed to tell them earlier because they weren't sure how they will accept it. But the next steps were that I needed early intervention, and the rest was an open book. Growing up, I wish my parents knew more about the resources and services I was entitled to, as financially I watched my dad be the only one working to provide for my family, as my mom stayed home to take care of the family, but also became a caregiver for me. I was about 13 years old when another parent of a child with a disability educated my parent about the supports and benefits that I can receive for me, and how I can start receiving services like case management and home modification and vehicle modification through the Office of People with Developmental Disability, but also receive services in the home to help my mom care for me, like home health aid services. Understanding intersectionality is something that's really important to me because growing up, to me, my disability identity was always the big picture and the major impact. But one day I decided and realized as I got older is I am Black, I have a disability, my parents are immigrants, and I live in an underserved community. So each day I wonder, which one will it be? I wish my parents hadn't always insist my siblings treat me like everyone else, although yes, it was done in the name of equality. Having my siblings treat me like everyone else left, in my opinion, that they would have been more educated and aware when it comes to my disability. So today I challenge them with my perspective on life and how I view life living with a disability. My parents Got this just right. My parents presumed competency, and that's how I began to thrive.
So, Katrina, I just want to point out to our audience here that we are now going to revisit the 10 tips for parents and guardians of students with disabilities that we presented in the first webinar we did in this mini series on October 25th. And it's available on the YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed to the YouTube Beyond Access channel, go ahead and do it. And now Trina is going to revisit those 10 tips through her experience and through the lens of her parents.
Here's tip number 1. My parents recognize children like me with disabilities are capable and grow into adults who can change the world. My parents encouraged me to start my nonprofit organization, Disability Champions Mentoring Network. What is Disability Champions Mentoring Network? The mission is to help students with disabilities in underserved communities transition from high school and be given more than one path of possibilities to their future. Next slide. Here's tip number 2. My parents learned our rights and fought for them, especially within the education system, like the Individual with Disabilities Education Act. They weren't aware of how to navigate the many systems because they weren't aware of the laws that exist, especially within the school system.
But they learned.
Yeah.
So now we're going to hear from Trina's mom as she talks about this.
You can get around and do a lot of things.
Here, let's
Don't
start.
only look at the disability, for example. Don't only look at because they're not walking, they can't walk around and do certain things, but they still can get around and do a lot of things. And that make them a champion.
What are some of the positive things that you think people or mentors can gain from the disability champion?
Fighting for your rights. That's a big problem now. Fighting for your rights.
How was it when Katrina graduated from college?
It was good, at least, you know, she didn't have a physical graduation, which we all know that, right? But it was a struggle because she had a little bit of issues with math. Then she was trying to get help. Then one day she said to me, she's gonna get a tutor. And she took herself by herself and she got a cab and she went downtown Brooklyn to meet with a tutor. When she got back home, she said, the tutor tell her, go back home. You know you're mad. But she didn't stop there. She still went and she got somebody to tutor her online. So from there, that's where she get to finish her math and get to graduate. So she always been fighting.
So like you said, never give up.
Never give up.
She can
Never give up. That's right. That's what I teach Katrina, all my kids them. Don't think, you know, if you can't reach here, you think that's the only distance you can reach. You could step your feet a little bit further out.
Do you have anything that you would say to a parent who now is or has a child with a disability? What would you tell that parent?
There's a lot. First, when the kids start out to school, monitor the child in school. Listen to when the child come home, once they can't speak, listen to them because they're gonna be always bringing back information from school. Never think that the kids doesn't know what the kid is saying. Analyze
everything that the kids say to you. Then you could question the teacher. And from there on, then you're gonna start putting the pieces together. That's what happened with Katrina, because it's been a struggle, as I said, from the age of 4 in school.
Okay. 1 second. So, so we just heard from Beverly, and I just want to point out that also here is Arnett, who we're not going to hear from, but Trina will share some stories about Arnett and her sister Chantel, who is working now as a paraeducator in the New York City Department of Education. So that's pretty cool. So Trina, back to you with tip number 3.
Here's tip number 3. My parents created a network of support. I wish it was bigger sooner, but they had my godmother, Dr. Nell, and my mom attended many parent workshops. Here is tip number 4. My parents taught me to advocate for myself in school and met with my teacher to create a success plan for me. This is the big picture for me. Getting involved with the IEP process, especially in high school, assuring that I move towards a high school diploma option that will allow me to go to college or have a job. Although this was done, the team at the IEP meeting still felt college was not possible.
Okay. So now we get to hear from Beverly again and her words of wisdom on how to help support your child finding his or her or their own voice.
Always listen. I say, if you don't understand something. So I told Katrina, I say, always listen. I say, if you don't understand something, put your hands up. Let the teacher hear that you don't understand something. I say, you listen to the teacher. I say, and always remember, listen to what they say to you. And if it's something that they say that you don't like, I say, you let them know that you don't like some things that they are saying. She said, well, ma'am, you say you gotta respect. I say, I'm telling you, you could respect all of the people, but sometimes some all of the people raise them out and they say things that they're not supposed to say, right? She said, yes. I said, so then you could get up and you could say, tell them, how you feel about it. I said, it's not very wrong. So from that, she started voicing herself out. It's like, we still in shock that she's doing so much. But that was not her from before.
She says she's giving a voice to the voiceless.
Yes, yes, that's right. Well, I guess she found herself, she was voiceless at that time, but now she realized she has a voice. And I told a lot of parents that, when they have the kid with a disability, do not underestimate them. Do not underestimate them.
And that messaging couldn't be made louder and better, just in terms of do not underestimate them. So,
And I'll share an example of how I advocated for myself.
Is to authentically share.
Sorry.
And I'll share an example of how I was able to advocate for myself in the school process. I was able to advocate for my services. Like in high school, when I wasn't happy with my occupational therapist services, I wrote countless letters to the Department of Educators, their supervisor, letting them know what I really expected from my services and what I look forward to receiving and what the service provider wasn't doing up to my expectation.
So Trina, you really came a long way from being the quiet, shy little girl who just never spoke, right? In school, like Wow. Wow. And kudos to your parents for helping you find your voice. Very powerful. Okay, tip number 5.
Here's tip number 5. My parents were involved in my learning and in my life. They often told me in life to simply be grateful for my disability, but I wanted them to that's a good thing, which I am grateful for my disability, because I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing today, but it would have also made me embrace how I feel sometimes and accept the way I feel about my disability sometimes, instead of being disappointed because things may be a little bit more challenging than others. But they are very involved in my day-to-day and year-to-year involvement. In 6th grade, when I was barely making it past 65 in grades, my parents questioned my teacher. Looking back to where I am today, I wonder if my teacher believed I'm going to make it beyond 65 in grades. But read my book to learn more about this.
Okay. And now we get to hear more from Trina's parents. Well, mom at this point, here, and I'm going to get it started. Beverly, take it away.
Reach out to others and let them know there are possibilities out there. There are people with disability, doesn't matter what type of disability it is. Disability is disability. So she just let them know, they don't have to sit home, do nothing, just watch the TV, because when you bring Katrina downstairs in the morning, sometimes come back and sorry for him. It's 11:30 in the night. She's going upstairs. Is that something to do with the computer? Is email to it? So at least it's like send a message out there to other parents that, don't look down on your child with a disability, which I do tell a lot of my friends them that too. You could seek help, you could help them. I have a niece, a son has autism. And the first time she brought him over to our house, he was like, just pulling himself to the side. But then guess what? I said to her, I said, you don't leave him like that. I said, talk to him, read to him. You know what happened now? Her and Katrina become his tutor, right? He calls them every day. And he holds conversation, but he wasn't doing. He speaks to them. He reads certain things to them too. My niece said she's so happy that, they're connecting with him. He has an older brother, but, the older brother's not gonna stick around and just babysit him. He gotta go out and work too, But he was doing good. And it's just what comes out from both of them into him, So which I think that, as I said, parents have to keep an open eyes. Yeah.
Parents have to keep an open mind. That is just so important. All right, so Trina, next slide.
Here's tip number 6. My parents promote and support my independence. In discovering my voice, I started my own website to share my story with the world. When I first decided to do this, my dad told me, if that's what makes you happy, then do it. After 10 free pages were complete, I knew this was my life. And it's important to talk to your child to understand their wishes and interests, because oftentimes educators and team members in the schools don't have time to make this possible. So it's important to start the conversation from home and bring it to the team and make sure they invest in it as an educator.
Thank you, Trina. Could you also share here some more about the role your dad has played, other roles in terms of promoting and supporting your independence? Like, I mean, he is like king of chauffeur land and all other, anything else and everything else you need. So could you talk about,
Sure.
you know, your dad's role?
So my dad drives me to all of my events that I need to get to that's outside of New York City. When I was Miss Wheelchair in New York 2018, I needed to travel to Michigan for the Miss Wheelchair America competition, and we drove 15 hours to Michigan in order for me to compete in the Miss Wheelchair America competition, because traveling on the plane can be quite scary and difficult for someone who uses a wheelchair. So we felt like it was much safer for me to use my accessible van and drive to Michigan. But recently, over the summer in August, I was given the opportunity to be a judge for the Miss Wheelchair America competition in Michigan again. And it was kind of tricky on deciding what did we want to do, because it was a long drive and we were trying to decide if my dad wants to do it again. But he decided he'll do it again. And he decided that he's going to drive the 15 hours again for me to be able to take my power chair with me. But he also drives me to Albany for my various meetings, and he often asks, when are we going back again?
And he drove, there was the family caravan to Washington DC for the Capitol Hill ADA Summit. And
Yeah.
I believe he was behind the wheel the whole way, and so proud of you, just like, you know, just really there to support your, you know, your journey and your independence. And I'm a big fan of Arnett and Beverly, to say the least. So, okay, next slide.
My parents identified experts and resources that supported them and me. So here's where I'll give some shout outs to amazing doctors that were a part of my team growing up. So I'll give a shout out to my developmental pediatrician rehabilitation doctor, Dr. Hazell Goodwin, who helped my mom navigate the way and always educating her about different things that were available to them. And I'll give a big shout out to Hospital for Special Surgery for their awesome care throughout my life as a kid to make me be where I am today. And I often reach out to one of my amazing doctors, Dr. Daniel Green, and keep him updated on the process. He is truly proud of me.
As totally understood. Awesome.
My parents got involved in my extracurricular activity. This is tip number 8. And the extracurricular activities that I took part in throughout my life was going to events, with Encourage Kids Foundation. For example, basketball games, Disney on Ice events, volleyball games, hockey games. We got to see celebrities, and we just got to spend time with other families who have kids with different types of medical conditions. And here is also where my dad often asks, where's the other fathers of the children with different disabilities? Because he's often the only one present at events.
And that's
Um,
really, that's just such an important point, right, Katrina, that your father is such a role model for other fathers, and how important it could be and would be for you know, more fathers to show up and play an active part. Yeah.
yeah, that's so important, and that's one of the reasons why on my journey I want to give hope to other parents of children with disabilities.
Awesome.
Here is a photo of me and my godmother walking now, and the Honorable Steve Barton at the ADA Summit in 2019.
Capitol Hill. Yeah. Tip number 9.
Here's tip number 9. My parents nurtured my positive disability identity. They never let my disability stop me from reaching my full potential. I was able to connect with a lot of mentors along the way, and not only mentors, but community allies, because it was through community allies and different networks and different opportunities that I was able to build my nonprofit organization, Disability Champions Mentoring Network. Here is tip number 10. My parents recognize my challenges and celebrate my successes. For sure, my parents recognize how long this journey has been in terms of different therapy appointments, medical appointments, and the list continues, but for sure they celebrate the moments of success and things that they never imagined attending or going to because of me. Here I'll share information about Disability Champions Mentoring Network. The vision statement is to support individuals and families access to system information, navigation, and to develop a sustainable special education transition framework with interagency collaboration to prepare youth with disabilities to plan for the life they want. One champion, one mentor, many pathways at a time. And here's the link to the Disability Champions Mentoring Network.
Okay. So now we get to hear a little more about this awesome organization.
Planning the transition after high school is a formal process for all students with disabilities. As I was planning my future in school, I was only given one path, a day program. When I graduated from high school, I felt like there was a whole new world ahead of me, and I created my own path.
Getting to know you and learning about your transition from high school at University at Albany's Equity and Transition Summit inspired collaborative action to build a network addressing the intersections of disability with race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status.
Growing up, I did not have a formal support system outside of my family to teach me advocacy. As a person with a disability, I understand the importance of having a diverse village of advocates and allies supporting me. Through Disability Champions, I can be one of those supporting advocates.
Transition is a tumultuous and tender time for all young people. For young people with disabilities, moving from secondary education to adult life is framed by federal mandates to create a plan for the future. We must go beyond the mandates. An equity focus at transition should prioritize the voice of the individual.
Countless days I lost courage, but I had a community of allies like the powerful community we would like to build through the Disability Champions Mentoring Network. After successfully graduating with an associate's degree from Kingsborough Community College, I envisioned the idea for Disability Champions.
Through mentorship and community building that includes young adults with disabilities as bridging mentors for many other supports, young people will find guidance and confidence to create a self-determined plan for the future.
A village can come together to make this happen for anyone, changing perspectives and opening doors to possibilities. Join Disability Champions as we build a community network.
We have a place for parents. We have a place for community allies.
We have a place for young adult mentors. We have a place for high school youth, and we have a place for you. Come be a change maker and invest in the future. Everyone has a voice. Even the voiceless ones have a voice. One champion, one mentor, many pathways at a time.
Awesome. 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 So that's just incredible. And I now want to take this moment to do another plug for Katrina's book that comes out on November 28th. Mine is pre-ordered, and everyone, she's got the QR code for you, so you can scan the QR code and get in line for a copy. So Trina, just we want to give people like an extra minute to scan the barcode, and how just tell us, how long did you work on this book?
So I really worked on this book during the pandemic. I actually graduated college during the pandemic, and once I graduated college, I kind of wanted to find a new structure for myself because I was so used to going to school and doing things. So I decided I wanted to write a book about my life going from special education to college, because many people recognize how successful I was in college, but don't really know the obstacles and the barriers I face to make it possible.
Yeah.
And I also want to share one of the reasons why I created Disability Champion Mentoring Network is because of the support system that my parents didn't have for me growing up, and how important self-care is for other parents with disabilities, because they spend a lot of time caring for us.
That's amen to that, which brings us right to a point in our summary. First of all, Trina, thank you for sharing your story. I could listen to you and talk with you, to no end. But to summarize for tonight, and I speak now as a parent, parenting is an ongoing journey. And what we can do for and with our children, just to sum it up, is one, presume competence, right? High expectations, believe in your child, and expect all who engage with your child to do so as well. Have and convey hope and joy on the parenting journey. Be your child's voice until they discover their voice. And Beverly really articulated that in terms of Trina's journey, finding her voice. Support that discovery. And as Trina just pointed out, practice your own self-care as parents and guardians. This is so important. You need to take care of you, whether it's that hot cup of tea or just having quiet time with a book or going for a walk with a friend. Find a way to regularly rejuvenate, because you got to take care of you. And find a coach if needed. Trina also coaches, right? And again, speaking as a parent, accept that we all slip up. We all make mistakes, and that you and your family are on this journey together, and that love and forgiveness and positivity prevail. So grant yourself grace. All right, which brings me to Just Say Hi and how to bring Just Say Hi into your child's school. Our Just Say Hi curriculum is for all the stakeholders that are involved in the school community, families, and that's families of students with disabilities and without disabilities. And we're doing that through our partnership with NYC DOE and these Beyond Access webinars that we are doing and love to do. We have an incredible lesson plan compendium for students with disabilities and without disabilities, pre-K through 12th grade. Like, it's completely just it's a roadmap. And then we also do professional development for educators and staff of students with and without disabilities, because any adult interacting with your child we can all afford to be upskilled. My favorite motto is every day is a school day for every one of us. So there's so much to learn in terms of disability inclusion, and we can all do better. And we all make mistakes, but we can learn from them, hopefully, and do better. So it is time to join in the conversation. How to bring it to your school? Spread the word about Just Say Hi among parents and guardians of students with and without disabilities in your school community. Advocate for bringing it to your school. Reach out to your school counselor, your assistant principal, your deputy superintendent, your superintendent, whomever you are connected with. Let them know about it. Okay, it benefits the entire school community. The research proves just that. And engage your PTA. If you are involved in the PTA, if you're not, find someone who is, or consider getting involved, and talk to your PTA leaders about bringing a family engagement webinar or a training to your school community, like the one we did tonight, as part of its diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, because disability belongs under the umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And continue to advocate for disability inclusion because it benefits the entire community. So with that, it brings our part to a close, but now we turn it over to Ori again, and we are open for questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you so much, Katrina. That was really an amazing presentation. I really enjoyed listening to you speak, and I have so many questions that I would love to ask you. And we, of course, everyone who's on here, please feel free to drop in your questions. I know I've been waiting on someone asked a question kind of right away, and I think this is a perfect question for you, Katrina, as it really speaks to kind of everything that you just kind of spoke about. And so I'll kind of read this all out, and then you can kind of digest it and give me a response here. But so the question from someone says, my son is 3 years old and has a mild right hemiplegia. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I love the concept of presuming confidence and believing in your child. He doesn't really know yet that he has a disability, but he walks slower, takes longer with tasks, etc. But as he gets older and enters school age, I know that he will need some tools to understand his disability versus other kids. How do you suggest I talk with him about his disability in a way that recognizes it, but also encourages and supports everything he is capable of doing?
Great question.
That is a great question. My answer would be to also show him the things that he may have difficulty with, but also show him the abilities and gifts that he has to find a balance in between both of them, so he don't feel limited in terms of the things that, or discouraged in terms of the things that he does slower than others. I think it's important to talk to him within that balance, also allowing him to recognize that he does have a disability, because it's harder to bring awareness to disability when they get older, because when they get older and you don't really disclose that you have a disability, you have a harder time connecting to the community.
I would also add to that, to emphasize what Katrina is saying, is start to use the word disability as a normal word, right? Like it's not a 4-letter word. And the more it's used just in the course of sort of normal conversation, the more it is destigmatized. It loses its stigma when it's simply a normal part of the conversation. You know, your child might be a redhead or might have brown eyes. Okay, so you know, you don't shy away of those descriptions.
Absolutely.
Disability is not a bad word.
Right.
I definitely agree. And I think that's a really good point for people when you're more open and open and just about in conversations with people and more upfront, you find that it's easier to communicate and break those barriers down. So I definitely agree with you there. And I know that we have another question from someone, and I know this is kind of you touched on this a lot, and I don't want to kind of ask you to give a vague answer, but just an overview answer of kind of what you talked about, because we have a question where it says your parents and teachers work together to create a successful plan for you, right? As you talked about, it's hard to answer this question, but what was that success plan, and what does success look like for you now?
Well, the success plan that they really envisioned for me was that, due to my many physical disabilities, that a day program would best fit for me, and that was their success plan. But in the very beginning of my high school journey, my mom ensured she talked to the IEP team about me getting a local diploma to ensure I have the opportunity to go to college or have a job.
So that's great. I mean, and it's a constant conversation and communication and support all the way through, as it sounds like. You're even getting questions that asking you to kind of go international, if you wanted to go cross border to do speaking engagements. So you're really, people are really kind of responding to you. And I for me, I had a question from, even from the beginning, you talked about early on about kind of your parents, as of you wish that they hadn't, talking about the way your siblings would treat you, and how you wish that it wasn't all, that it was more equal, and that it wasn't so much that your parents forced upon, like that they treated you a little differently, or to treat you the same way. But I want to kind of ask you more about your siblings. Like, how did your relationship with your siblings, and how you kind of directly just were able to break that with them and have a support system just outside of your parents as well?
It's kind of challenging, but I do try to continue educating them on like how I see disability and how I'm educated on certain things and how like they can, if they're more educated and aware of how my disability impacts me and the true challenges, how they can be better advocates and be able to support me even greater beyond just simply caring for me.
So can I jump in here? Trina, you have folks, who want you to speak at, locally and in Canada. So everybody Ori, can you please put for everyone to see, like, I mean, it's on the shared screen, but Trina's email, you can email her directly at Ms. Wheelchair NY 2018@gmail.com. So you can go to her directly, or you can also reach out to me and Trina and I can I can connect her and whatnot. And mine is debbie.fink@yourcpf.org. That's
Yeah,
Debbie.
you were beating me to it, Debbie. I saw those questions well, and I couldn't hardly agree more. And I want to get as you're you out there more as it seems like everyone is responding to it. So of course, what if everyone who's on still, you can reach out to, as you've gotten emails from Beyond Access series at nyc.schools.gov. Please reach out to that email to request any additional information about Katrina, how to reach out to her. As you see, you can also reach out to Debbie. She is a great way to get in contact with Katrina, as well as for the Just Say Hi program. So there's a lot of great ways, but absolutely, I'm more than happy to share just the way to get in contact with Katrina, and and obviously the link to her book. Everything in the recap email will be all Katrina. So we're really, look out for that email. We'll have all the information, and please go get her book. I'm gonna go get her book now. It seems like a really, really important read. And but before we go, I just want to really, really just thank you again, for coming here and speaking to us and speaking to the families, not only on this webinar, but as as we talked about, it'll be on the YouTube page tomorrow. So you'll have people being able to also view, your what you talked about here as well. But just, I really hope that people take away this message and you continue to do what you're doing. Is that I really appreciated your presentation tonight and everything you shared with us. And it was a really, really great way to, with our series, our capper here with the Just Say Hi program, cerebral palsy. No one better I could think of to on our last session here for closing out this 3-part series. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys for having me. And I'll share other information with Debbie and Ori so they can add it to the list before they send everything out.
Absolutely. And so again, thank you, Katrina, and thank you, Debbie. Thank you for Just Say Hi and Cerebral Palsy Foundation. We appreciated this series. This definitely will not be the last that you see of Cerebral Palsy Foundation and Debbie. So look forward for any announcements. Thank you, Greenie, for providing the ASL interpretation for our 3-part series. Really, really appreciate it. And like I said, everything will be sent out tomorrow about Just Say Hi, more importantly, Katrina, all the information that you need for this. But otherwise, stay tuned for Beyond Access announcements. We don't have a Beyond Access next week. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Please enjoy. And we will be sending out an email as well with an announcement of our next session the following week. But otherwise, everyone have a great evening and have a good night.
Thank you, Ori, and NYC DOE for all the great work you do.
Thank you.